As a new or future homeowner in Florida, it's important to know all of the benefits you're entitled to and take steps to protect your home and financial stability while simultaneously saving thousands on your property over your stay. One way to do this is by homesteading your property. In this video, I'll explain why homesteading is so important and how it can provide you with significant financial benefits and protections. You'll learn about the property tax exemptions and creditor protections that come with homesteading, as well as how to qualify and what you need to know to get started. That's all coming up right now. If this is your first time to this channel and you want to know everything about living, buying, and selling in Southwest Florida, then subscribe and tap the bell for notifications so you can be the first to know about the current market, latest news, and newest tips to keep you ahead of the curve. I'm Rick Harrison with the Home Sold Guaranteed Group at MVP Realty here in Southwest Florida. My team and I are getting calls, emails, and texts every day from people just like you looking for help on making their move to the greater Fort Myers area, and we absolutely love it. Whether you're moving in 9 days or 90 days, give us a call, shoot us a text, send an email, or schedule a Zoom so we can help you figure out exactly what you want and where you want to be. All of our information is in the description below. So as I mentioned in this video, I'm going to cover all the benefits of homesteading your new property, which you definitely want to know about if you recently purchased a home or are planning to purchase a home in Florida in the near future. And stick around to the end where I'll go over exactly how and when you can take advantage of this incredible homeowner benefit. So what is homesteading? Homesteading a property refers to the process of establishing a permanent residence on a piece of property and claiming a legal exemption on the property for tax purposes. In Florida, homesteading a property provides homeowners with a number of benefits, including property tax exemptions, tax exemption portability, stability and protection from creditors and forced sales, and community involvement. And towards the end, I'll let you in on how this has led to a large amount of wealth moving to our state. First, let's talk about the tax exemptions. In Florida, homesteaded properties are eligible for a property tax exemption for the value of the property up to $50,000. This means that the value of the property above $50,000 will be taxed at the regular rate, but the value of the property up to $50,000 will be exempt from taxation. For example, if the value of a homesteaded property is $75,000, the homeowner would be eligible for a $50,000 exemption, which would result in a tax bill based on a property value of $25,000. That's the $75,000 minus the $50,000 exemption. It's important to note that the homestead exemption only applies to property taxes and doesn't exempt the property from other types of taxes such as sales tax or income tax. Veterans who are disabled or over the age of 65 may be eligible for an additional property tax exemption in addition to the homestead exemption. This exemption is called the additional homestead exemption for veterans. To be eligible for this exemption, a veteran must meet the following requirements. First, they need to be a Florida resident, obviously. They also need to own and occupy the property as their primary residence. They need to be a veteran who is honorably discharged and be either disabled or over the age of 65. The amount of the exemption depends on the veteran's disability rating and their age. For example, a veteran who is 100% disabled may be eligible for a total exemption of their property's value, while a veteran who is age 65 or older may be eligible for an exemption of up to $5,000. It's important to note that this exemption is in addition to the standard homestead exemption, which provides a property tax exemption of up to $50,000 for all homesteaded properties in Florida, as I previously mentioned. To apply for the additional homestead exemption for veterans, you must also complete an application and submit it to your county property appraiser. You will need to provide proof of your eligibility, such as a copy of your discharge papers and proof of your age or disability. One of my personal favorite benefits is the portability of homestead tax exemption. In Florida, homeowners who have received a property tax exemption on their homesteaded property may be able to transfer the exemption to a new property if they sell their current home and purchase a new one. To qualify for portability, the homeowner must have received the homestead exemption on their current property for at least 2 years and must apply for the exemption on their new property within 2 years of selling their current home. The exemption can be transferred to a new property regardless of whether it is located in the same county as the current property. The portability of the homestead exemption is only available for the portion of the exemption that exceeds the $50,000 exemption that is automatically applied to all homesteaded properties in Florida. For example, if a homeowner received a $75,000 exemption on their current property, they would be able to transfer $25,000 of the exemption to their new property, the portion of the exemption that exceeds the $50,000 automatic exemption. So here's an example of how the homestead exemption portability feature would actually work. Imagine that a homeowner, Alice, has received a homestead exemption on her current property in the amount of $75,000. Alice has lived in the home for 5 years and decides to sell it. She purchases a new home in a different county for $200,000. Under Florida law, Alice is eligible to transfer a portion of her homestead exemption to her new property because she received the exemption on her current property for at least 2 years and is applying for the exemption on her new property within 2 years of selling her current home. The portion of the exemption that Alice can transfer is the amount that exceeds the $50,000 exemption that is automatically applied to all homesteaded properties. In this case, Alice is eligible to transfer $25,000 of her exemption to her new property, $75,000 minus the $50,000. As a result, the value of Alice's new property for property tax purposes would be $175,000, the $200,000 minus the $25,000 exemption. This would result in a lower property tax bill for Alice compared to what she would have paid if she had not been able to transfer the exemption. But beware, there are also a few ways in which you can lose this portability benefit, so let's go over those real quick. The first example is if you do not use your new property as your primary residence. In order to be eligible for homestead portability benefit, you must use your new property as your primary residence. If you do not, you may lose the benefit. Another way is if you do not apply for the exemption within 2 years of purchasing your new property. Under Florida law, you must apply for the homestead exemption on your new property within 2 years of purchasing it in order to be eligible for the portability benefit. If you do not apply within this time frame, you will not be able to transfer the benefit to your new property. Lastly, if you receive a new homestead exemption on your new property, you will no longer be able to use the portability benefit. The portability benefit is only available for the portion of the exemption that exceeds the $50,000 exemption that is automatically applied to all homesteaded properties. If you receive a new exemption, it will replace the portability benefit. Stability and creditor protection is another key benefit of homesteading. In Florida, a homesteaded property is protected from creditors, which means that it cannot be seized to pay off debts. This protection applies to both the homeowner and their family, and it extends to the homeowner's personal property, such as furnishings and household goods, as well as to the home itself. There are some exceptions to the creditor protection provided by homesteading. For example, the protection does not apply to debts incurred for the purchase of the property, for the improvement of the property, or for taxes on the property. The protection also does not apply to certain types of creditors, such as the federal government or child support creditors. But here's an example of how homesteading can protect a homeowner against creditors in Florida. Imagine that a homeowner, Bob, has fallen behind on his credit card payments and is being sued by his credit card company. Bob's home is worth $300,000 and he has a mortgage balance of $200,000. Bob's home is homesteaded, which means that it's protected from creditors. In this scenario, even if Bob loses the lawsuit and is ordered to pay the credit card company $50,000, the creditor would not be able to seize Bob's home in order to satisfy the judgment. This is because the creditor cannot take a homesteaded property to pay off debts. Instead, the creditor would have to seek other ways to collect the debt, such as garnishing Bob's wages or seizing other assets that are not protected by the homestead exemption. The last benefit, not necessarily a rah-rah factor, but one that does have long-term effects, is community involvement. Homesteading can promote community involvement in a number of ways. By establishing a permanent residence in a community, homesteaders often become more invested in the well-being of their neighborhood and the issues that affect it. This can lead to increased participation in local events and activities, as well as a greater sense of responsibility for the community as a whole. Because they have a long-term stake in the community, homesteaders may be more likely to attend meetings and get involved in community projects. This can help to create a sense of ownership and accountability for its community members. Homesteading has also been a contributor to the number of wealthy residents who have purchased property in the state for many of the very same reasons, and some less honorable ones as well. For obvious reasons, the tax exemption allows the wealthy to reduce their property tax burden, which can result in significant savings on property taxes for high-value properties. The creditor protection can be particularly beneficial for wealthy individuals who may be at risk of being sued or facing financial challenges and avoid forced sale of their property. This benefit is one of the secret loopholes for less honorable means of preserving wealth as well. For example, over the years, some white collar criminals have been able to preserve a large amount of their wealth by investing it into a large home. By using the homestead benefit, making it their primary residence, they're able to avoid a sizable amount of their wealth from being seized by creditors or being forced to sell while being prosecuted or sued. I won't name any names, but this has been an infamous loophole for many infamous names throughout the years. All right, so when and how do you actually homestead your property? To homestead a property in Florida, you must first make the property your permanent residence, meaning you must live in the property for at least 6 months out of the year and use it as your primary residence. Next, you'll need to apply for a homestead exemption by completing an application and submitting it to your county property appraiser. The application must be filed between January 1st and March 1st of the year for which you are seeking the exemption. You also need to provide proof of your Florida residency, such as a driver's license or voter registration card, as well as proof of ownership of the property, such as a deed or tax bill. As mentioned earlier, if you're applying for the additional veterans benefit, you will need to provide proof of your eligibility as well. Then it's all about waiting for approval. Once you have filed your application, the county appraiser will review it and determine whether you are eligible for the exemption. If your application is approved, you will receive a letter for approval and the exemption will be reflected on your property tax bill. Overall, homesteading provides homeowners with a number of benefits, saving them hundreds, even thousands in taxes every year, allowing them to port that savings to other homes if they decide to move, provides peace of mind and protection from creditors, and contributes to a stronger, more cohesive community. It's one of the great benefits of living in our state and why you might want to consider moving here. Well, that's it for me today. If you got value out of today's video, please hit that like button to let me know, and don't forget to subscribe so you're the first to be notified of the latest data, tips, and happenings in our market. And as always, please don't hesitate to reach out for help or questions as many of you do. Our contact info is in the description below. Thanks for watching, and I hope to see you again in the next video. But until then, stay safe, stay positive, and more importantly, stay free.